Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Science, Paper 1. 1. Animal Nutrition. 1.1 Partitioning of food energy within the animal, direct and indirect calorimetry, carbon, nitrogen balance, and comparative slaughter methods. Systems for expressing energy value of foods in ruminants, pigs, and poultry. Energy requirements for maintenance, growth, pregnancy, lactation, egg, wool, and meat production. 1.2 Latest advances in protein nutrition, energy protein interrelationship, evaluation of protein quality, use of NPN compounds in ruminant diets, protein requirements for maintenance, growth, pregnancy, lactation, egg, wool, and meat production. 1.3 Major and trace minerals, their sources, physiological functions, and deficiency symptoms, toxic minerals, mineral interactions, role of fat soluble and water, soluble vitamins in the body, their sources and deficiency symptoms. 1.4 Feed additives, methane inhibitors, probiotics, enzymes, antibiotics, hormones, oligosaccharides, antioxidants, emulsifiers, mold inhibitors, buffers, etc. Use and abuse of growth promoters like hormones and antibiotics, latest concept. 1.5 Conservation of fodders, storage of feeds and feed ingredients, recent advances in feed technology and feed processing, anti-nutritional and toxic factors present in livestock feeds, feed analysis and quality control, digestibility trials, direct, indirect, and indicator methods, predicting feed intake in grazing animals. 1.6 Advances in ruminant nutrition, nutrient requirements, balanced rations, feeding of calves, pregnant, work animals, and breeding bulls, strategies for feeding milk animals during different stages of lactation cycle, effect of feeding on milk composition, feeding of goats for meat and milk production, feeding of sheep for meat and wool production. 1.7 Swine nutrition, nutrient requirements, creep, starter, grower, and finisher rations, feeding of pigs for lean meat production, low cost rations for swine. 1.8 Poultry nutrition, special features of poultry nutrition, nutrient requirements for meat and egg production, formulation of ration for different classes of layers and broilers. 2. Animal physiology. 2.1 Physiology of blood and its circulation, respiration, excretion, endocrine glands in health and disease. 2.2 Blood constituents, properties and functions, blood cell formation, hemoglobin synthesis and chemistry, plasma proteins production, classification and properties, coagulation of blood, hemorrhagic disorder, anticoagulants, blood groups, blood volume, plasma expanders, buffer systems in blood, biochemical tests and their significance in disease diagnosis. 2.3 Circulation, physiology of heart, cardiac cycle, heart sounds, heartbeat, electrocardiograms, work and efficiency of heart, effect of ions on heart function, metabolisms of cardiac muscles, nervous and chemical regulation of heart, effect of temperature and stress on heart, blood pressure and hypertension, osmotic regulation, arterial pulse, vasomotor regulations of circulation, shock, coronary and pulmonary circulation, blood-brain barrier, cerebrospinal fluid circulation in birds. 2.4 Respiration. Mechanism of respiration, transport and exchange of gases, neural control of respiration, chemoreceptors, hypoxia respirations in birds. 2.5 Excretions. Structures and functions of kidney, formation of urine, methods of studying renal function, renal regulation of acid-base balance, physiological constituents of urine, renal failure, passive venous congestions, urinary secretion in chicken sweat glands and their function, biochemical test for urinary dysfunctions. 2.6 Endocrine glands, functional disorders, their symptoms and diagnosis, synthesis of hormones, mechanisms and control of secretions, hormonal receptors, classifications and functions. 2.7 Growth and animal production, parental, perinatal and postnatal growth, maturation, growth curves, measures of growth, factors affecting growth, conformation, body composition. Meat quality. 2.8 Physiology of milk production, reproduction and digestion, current status of hormonal control of mammary development, milk secretion and milk ejection, male and female reproductive organs, their components and functions, digestive organs and their functions. 2.9 Environmental physiology, physiological relations and their regulation, mechanisms of adaptation, environmental factors and regulatory mechanisms involved in animal behavior, climatology, various parameters and their importance, animal ecology, physiology of behavior, effect of stress on health and production. 3. Animal reproduction, semen quality, preservation and artificial insemination, components of semen, composition of spermatozoa, chemical and physical properties of ejaculated semen, factors affecting semen in vivo and in vitro, factors affecting semen production and quality, preservation, composition of diluents, sperm concentration, transport of diluted semen, deep freezing techniques in cows, sheep, goats, swine, and poultry, detection of oestrus and time of insemination for better conception, anestrus and repeat breeding. Livestock production and management, commercial dairy farming, comparison of dairy farming in India with advanced countries, dairying under mixed farming and the specialized farming, economic dairy farming, starting of a dairy farm, capital and land requirement, organization of a dairy farm, opportunities in dairy farming, factors determining the efficiency of dairy animal, herd recording, budgeting, cost of milk production, pricing policy, personal management, developing practical and economic rations for dairy cattle, supply of grains throughout the year, feed and fodder requirements of dairy farms, feeding regimes for young stock and bulls, heifers and breeding animals, nutrients in feeding young and adult stock, feeding records. 4.2 Commercial meat, egg and wool production, development of practical and economic rations for sheep, goat, pigs, rabbit and poultry, supply of grains, fodder, feeding regimes for young and mature stock, nutrients in enhancing production and management, capital and land requirements, and socio-economic concept. 4.3 Feeding and management of animals under drought, flood, and other natural calamities. 5. Genetic and animal breeding. 5.1 History of animal genetics, mitosis and meiosis, Mendelian inheritance, deviations to Mendelian genetics, expression of genes, linkage and crossing over, sex determination, sex influenced and sex limited characters, blood groups and polymorphism, chromosome abbreviation, cytoplasmic inheritance, gene and its structure, DNA as a genetic material, genetic code and protein synthesis, recombinant DNA technology, mutations, types of mutations, methods for detecting mutations and mutation rate, transgenesis. 5.2 Population genetics applied to animal breeding, quantitative versus qualitative traits, Hardy-Weinberg law, population versus individuals, gene and genotype frequency, forces changing, gene frequency, random drift and small population, theory of birth coefficient, inbreeding, methods of estimating inbreeding coefficient, system of inbreeding, elective population, size, breeding value, estimation of breeding value, dominance and epistatic deviation, partitioning of variation, genotype X environment correlations and genotype X environment interactions, role of multiple measurements, resemblance between relatives. 5.3 Breeding systems, breeds of livestock and poultry, heritability, repeatability, and genetic and phenotypic correlations. Their methods of estimation and precision of estimates aids to selection and their relative merits. Individual, pedigree, family, and within family selection, pregnancy testing, methods of selection, construction of selection index, and their uses, comparative evaluations of genetic gains through various selection methods, indirect selection, and correlated response, inbreeding, outbreeding, upgrading, crossbreeding, and synthesis of breeds, crossing of inbred lines for commercial production, selection for general and specific combining ability, breeding for the threshold character, sire index. 6. Extension. Basic philosophy, objectives, concepts and principles of extension, different methods adopted to educate farmers under rural conditions, generation of technology, its transfer and feedback, problems and constraints in transfer of technology, animal husbandry programs for rural development. Paper 2. 1. Anatomy, pharmacology and hygiene. 1.1 Histology and histological techniques. Paraffin embedding technique of tissue processing and HE staining. Phrasing microtomy, microscopy bright field microscope and electron microscope. Cytology structure of cell organelles and inclusions. Cell division, cell types, tissues and their classifications, embryonic and adult tissues. Comparative histology of organs, vascular, nervous, digestive, respiratory, musculoskeletal and urogenital system, endocrine glands, integuments, sense organs. 1.2 Embryology. Embryology of vertebrates with special reference to aves and domestic mammals, gametogenesis, fertilizations, germ layers, foetal membranes, and placentation types of placenta in domestic mammals, teratology twins and twinning organogenesis germ layer, derivatives endodermal, mesodermal, and ectodermal derivatives. 1.3 Bovine anatomy, regional anatomy, paranasal stenosis of ox, surface anatomy of salivary glands, regional anatomy of infraorbital, maxillary, mandibuloalveolar, mental and coronal nerve block, regional anatomy of paravertebral nerves, pudendal nerve, median, ulnar and radial nerve vestibular, fibular and digital nerves, cranial nerve structures involved in epidural anesthesia, superficial lymph nodes, surface anatomy of visceral organs of thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities, comparative features of locomotor apparatus and their application in the biomechanics of mammalian body. 1.4 Anatomy of fold, musculoskeletal system, functional anatomy in relation to respiration and flying, digestion, and egg production. 1.5 Pharmacology and therapeutics, drugs, cellular level of pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, drugs acting on fluids and electrolyte balance, drug acting on autonomic nervous system, modern concept of anesthesia and dissociative anesthetics, autocoids, antimicrobials and principles of chemotherapy in microbial infection, use of hormones in therapeutics, chemotherapy of parasitic infection, drug and economic concerns in the edible tissues of animal, chemotherapy of neoplastic diseases, toxicity due to insecticides, plants, metals, nonmetals, zootoxins, and mycotoxins. 1.6 Veterinary hygiene with reference to water and air and habitation. Assessment of pollution of water, air and soil, importance of climate in animal health, effect of environment on animal function and performance, relationship between industrialization and animal agriculture, animal housing requirements for specific categories of domestic animals, which pregnant cows and sows, milking cows, broiler birds, stress, strain, and productivity in relation to animal habitation. 2. Animal diseases. 2.1 Etiology, epidemiology, pathogenesis, symptoms, post-mortem lessons, diagnosis and control of infectious diseases of cattle, sheep and goat, horses, pigs and poultry. 2.2 Etiology, epidemiology, symptoms, diagnosis, treatment or production, disease of cattle, horse, pig and poultry. 2.3 Deficiency, diseases of domestic animals and birds. 2.4 Diagnosis and treatment of non-specific conditions like impaction, bloat, diarrhea, indigestion, dehydration, stroke, poisoning. 2.5 Diagnosis and treatment of neurological disorders. 2.6 Principles and methods of immunizations of animals against specific diseases. Herd immunity, disease-free zones, zero disease concept, chemoprophylaxis. 2.7 Anesthesia, local, regional, and general pre-anesthetic medication, symptoms and surgical interference in fractures and dislocation, hernia, choking, abomasal, displacement, cesarean operation, rheumatommy, castration. 2.8 Disease investigation techniques. Materials for laboratory investigation. Establishment, Animal Health Center, disease-free zone. 3. Veterinary public health. 3.1 Zoonosis. Classification, definition, role of animal and birds in prevalence and transmission of zoonotic diseases. Occupational zoonotic diseases. 3.2 Epidemiology. Principal definition of epidemiological terms, application of epidemiological measures in the study of diseases and disease control, epidemiological features of air, water, and foodborne infections, OIE regulation, WTO, sanitary and phytosanitary measures. 3.3 Veterinary jurisprudence. Rules and regulations for improvement of animal quality and prevention of animal diseases. State and central rules for prevention of animal and animal product borne diseases. SPCA. Better legal cases. Certificates, materials and methods of collections of samples for better legal investigations. 4. Milk and milk products technology. 4.1 Market milk. Quality testing and grading of raw milk, processing, packaging, storing, distribution, marketing defects and their control, preparation of the following milks: pasteurized, standardized, toned, double toned, sterilized, homogenized, reconstituent, recombined, and flavored milks, preparation of cultured milks, cultures and their management, yogurt, dahi, lassi, and sekhand, preparation of flavored and sterilized milks, legal standards, sanitation requirement for clean and safe milk and for the milk plant equipment. 4.2 Milk products technology. Selection of raw materials, processing, storing, distributing, and marketing milk products such as cream, butter, ghee, khoa, chana, cheese, condensed, evaporated, dried milk, and baby food, ice cream and kulfi, byproducts, whey products, buttermilk, lactose, and casein, testing, grading, judging milk product, BIS, and age mark specification. Legal standards, quality control, nutritive properties, packaging, processing, and operational control, costing of dairy products. 5. Meat hygiene and technology. 5.1 Meat hygiene. 5.1.1 Anti-mortem care and management of food animals, stunning, slaughter, and dressing operations, abattoir requirements and designs, meat inspection, procedures and judgment of carcass meat cards, grading of carcass meat cards, duties and functions of veterinarians in wholesome meat production. 5.1.2 Hygienic methods of handling production of meat, spoilage of meat and control measures post slaughter, uh, physicochemical changes in meat and factors that influence them, quality improvement methods, adulteration of meat and detection, regulatory provisions in meat trade and industry. 5.2 Meat technology. 5.2.1 Physical and chemical characteristics of meat. Meat emulsions, methods of preservation of meat, curing, canning, irradiations, packaging of meat and meat products, processing and formulations. 5.3 Byproducts. Slaughterhouse byproducts and their utilization, edible and inedible byproducts, social and economic implications of proper utilizations of slaughterhouse byproducts, organ products for food and pharmaceuticals. 5.4 poultry products of technology, chemical composition and nutritive value of poultry meat, pre-slaughter care and management, slaughtering techniques, inspection, preservation of poultry meat and products, legal and BIS standard, structure, composition and nutritive values of egg, microbial spoilage, preservation and maintenance, marketing of poultry meat, eggs and products. 5.5 Rabbit or fur animal farming, rabbit meat production, disposal and utilization of fur and wool and recycling of waste by products, grading of wool.